Hello dear student friends, welcome to KalviTv. In today's event, we shall learn plus 2 political science unit 5 which talks about federalism in India. Federalism is the term means delegation of powers, that is distribution of powers between the center and state governments. Before going to the topic, we need to understand the difference between a central government, that is unitary government, and a state government. Unitary government in general means all the powers are vested in the central government, and in fact if there are any states coming under it, they derive their power from the central government. State government on the other side, that is earlier it was federal government. On the other side, it means powers are divided between the central and state governments. Both operate in their respective jurisdictions independently. That means one will not dominate the other. Instead, both will coordinate together. That is, both are functioning independently in their allotted jurisdictions. Let us come to our Indian situation. As per our Indian constitution, the establishment is of a dual polity, which means there will be one central government at the center, and at the periphery level there will be many state governments. Distribution of powers has been done between the central and state governments through 3 lists. They are likely to be union list, state list, concurrent list. Now, in union list, it is the center that will do legislations. In state list, it is the states, that is the state legislative assemblies, they will do the legislations. In case of concurrent list, both the center and the states will do their legislations, but however, finally the central alone will be dominating in the concurrent list. Some examples of federal countries apart from our country. In fact, first federal state is USA. From the British colonies, Australia and Canada are some of the best examples for federal countries, and in fact Switzerland, it is also a federal country with some unique features. Now, let us go to the origin of our Indian federalism. Even the concept has emerged before independence. First came the Regulating Act of 1773. This was the first step made by the British government to regulate the East India Company in our country. In fact, they designated the Governor of Bengal as Governor General of Bengal. Under this Governor General's control came the other governors, preferably the Governor of Madras and Governor of Bombay. The first Governor General, for your information, is Lord Warren Hastings. Based on this Regulation Act recommendation, the prestigious Supreme Court of our country was established as Apex Court in the year 1774 at Fort Williams in Kolkata, which is now called as Kolkata. Government of India Act 1919, it is otherwise called as Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. In this act, the central subjects were demarcated and separated from the provincial states. You know, in those days, now we call as states, it was earlier, particularly prior to our independence, it was called the provincial states. This act first introduced the concept of bicameralism, and there was direct elections in our country. Government of India Act 1935. This is a major act. In fact, many of our constitution, present constitution features has been taken exclusively from this Government of India Act 1935. The present 3 list concept has been exclusively taken from the Government of India Act 1935. This act divided the powers between the center and the units. units means now it is called states, as 3 lists, federal list, now it is called as union list, provincial list, now it is called as state list, concurrent list, which means both the center and the states together enjoy the rights. This act abolished diarchy in the provinces and introduced provincial autonomy. This word provincial autonomy is one of the major turning point. It also introduced bicameralism in some provinces. Part 6 and Schedule 7 of our Indian Constitution. There are actually 12 schedules, and in that Schedule 7 exclusively deals with this distribution of powers between the center and state. After independence, particularly after the separation of Pakistan from our country, our constitutional framers in the Constituent Assembly, they had prioritized a strong center concept and making the states to become weak in the sense making the states to become dependent towards the center. In our Constitution, Part 6 establishes this federalism concept. Let us talk about 2 major characters of our Indian Constitution: federal characters, unitary characters. In fact, our Constitution is unique in the sense we do have both federal as well as unitary. That is why it is also called as sui generis. The word sui generis, it means a federation of its own kind. Let us first talk about federal characters of our Indian Constitution. Though there are many features, 6 features describe our Constitution with federal status. First is written Constitution, then supremacy of the Constitution, distribution of powers, bicameralism, rigidity of the Constitution, and independent Supreme Court. Written Constitution. Any federal country should have a written constitution. The purpose of this written constitution is to avoid the doubts and also the encroachment of powers. Encroachment in the sense center may dominate sometimes towards the state subjects. Likewise, states may try to dominate the central subjects. We have a written constitution to give a clear-cut clarity or understanding, that is, it will avoid the encroachment of powers between the center and states. Supremacy of the constitution. As the heading suggests, it means that both the center and the states derive their power from the Indian Constitution. That is, no one is above the Constitution. No one here denotes both the central government as well as the state government. One cannot override the powers and status enjoyed by the other. That means they are given the powers through the Constitution and enjoy the constitutional status. Distribution of powers. As we have discussed earlier, I want to share some basic points in this particular topic. I have said that distribution of powers is done through our Constitution. Now, 3 lists: union list, state list, concurrent list. First of all, we need to understand what does this union list means. What are the powers exclusively allotted? What are the subjects that deals with this union list? Any national identity, particularly citizenship, defense, finance, external affairs, all these subjects are coming under union list. That means central government alone can do any legislations. State list, for example, local government, markets, water, these subjects are exclusively coming under state list. It means state legislative assemblies can do any acts. Concurrent list, as the name suggests, it includes both. One major subject that is always debatable is education. The subject education comes under concurrent list. It means both the union government and the state government both do have the right to pass an act, but however, at the end, in case center does a legislation, that will become more valid. Price control or some of the other subjects that comes exclusively under concurrent list. Bicameralism, it means, as the word suggests, bi means two. Now our Indian constitution suggests bicameralism for the federal concept. It means there are two houses in our Indian parliament. Upper house is the Rajya Sabha and lower house is the Lok Sabha. Lok Sabha is otherwise called House of People. It means the members of Lok Sabha are elected directly by the people. Say for example, all our entire nation is divided into different constituencies. At present 543 constituencies are there and members are directly elected by the people. On the other side, Rajya Sabha, it is otherwise called as guardian of states. It means the state legislative assembly members, that is MLAs, they in fact elect the members to Rajya Sabha. Rigidity of the constitution. In our Indian constitution, part 20, that is article 368, it exclusively deals with constitutional amendment, which means any sensitive, particularly an issue affecting the state related concepts cannot be easily done. That is not by a simple majority. A constitutional amendment requires a special majority to be passed in our Indian parliament. The very purpose of this particular concept is to protect the states' rights. So parliament without this particular article 368 cannot even touch the sensitive state issue lists. Supreme Court. For any federal setup of a nation, there needs to be an independent judiciary which should not be biased towards any organizations. In our country, Supreme Court takes that role. It solves the disputes between the central government and the state governments, and in fact not only between these two, apart from this, even between two or more state governments. If the center or states passes a law violating the constitution, then the Supreme Court there comes to declare that particular law as invalid. That is why it is otherwise also called as protector of the constitution. Now let us deal with the unitary characters. Though we have said about the federal characters of our Indian constitution, our constitutional framers have given much weightage to unitary characters. First is single constitution, then single citizenship, flexibility of the constitution, no right to existence for states, anti-federal nature of Rajya Sabha, imbalanced distribution of powers, emergencies, integrated judiciary, election commission, unified auditing. Now let us deal first about the first and foremost unitary concept, that is single constitution. There is only one constitution for the entire nation, no separate constitution for a state. It means the entire country will be following only one constitution, whereas in a big federal country like USA, states enjoy having separate constitutions of their own apart from their national constitution. Second is single citizenship, no separate citizenship for a state. We all are called as Indians, Indian citizens, which means dual citizenship is totally barred in our country, whereas a developed federal concept state of USA will follow dual citizenship. It means the state which a member belong, she will be having one citizenship for that particular state, and apart from that national citizenship. Flexibility of the constitution. Now we need to understand the difference of the federal character topic and the unitary topic that is dealing with flexibility. Earlier we were speaking about rigidity. Now we will be dealing with flexibility. I said in rigidity under Article 368, any particular sensitive issue cannot be easily made. That means, only through a special majority Parliament can pass an act. But here in this concept, flexibility means Parliament can pass an act easily, sometimes even without consulting the states. In our Indian Constitution, Article 3 and 4 exclusively deals with some of these concepts, like Parliament can change the boundary of a state, Parliament can create a new state even without the consult of the concerned state. In fact, President will just send a notice, proposal to the concerned state. However, the opinion of the concerned state assembly is not binding towards the center. Anti-federal nature of Rajya Sabha. Unequal representation. This means a state having highest population will have higher number of members in Rajya Sabha. Say for example, in our country, Uttar Pradesh, which is highly populated, has 31 Rajya Sabha MPs, whereas from Nagaland there is only one MP. In case of Tamil Nadu, we have 18 members to represent for Rajya Sabha. In USA, all the states have equal representation, which means 2 members from each state are elected to the upper house. Imbalanced distribution of powers. More powers are in the union list. As we talked about central list, state list, concurrent list, in the union list there are more powers, and particularly revenue related sources comes exclusively under the union list. This particular concept makes the states to become very weak. Article 249 of our Indian Constitution in fact says that Parliament can change even in the state list. So, apart from union list, Parliament, that is center, they can also do changes in the state list. One particular article is exclusively on 249. Now, apart from these 3 lists, there are one more power called residuary power. This power residuary, this concept is those powers which do not come under the control of these 3 lists, they are placed in the topic called residuary power. Now, as per our Indian Constitution, this residuary power is exclusively under the control of center. Emergencies. In our Indian Constitution, articles 352 to 360, that is coming under part 13, deals with emergency. First of all, we should understand that there are 3 types of emergencies. Article 352 talks about national emergency. Say for example, in case of war or any external aggression, the President can declare the national emergency. Article 356, it talks about state emergency. When President imposes Article 356 on a state, the state assembly can be either dissolved or kept in suspended animation. Article 360 deals with financial emergency. Now, I want to just link this particular emergencies with our topic unitary characters. When our country is imposed with these emergencies, may it be 352 or for a state 356 or for the entire nation financial emergency. During emergency, our constitution automatically changes into unitary character. Thus, federal concept will become sleep and unitary will be dominant. Integrated judiciary. Our distribution of powers are just only in the assembly, legislative and administrative domains and not in judiciary. As I speak this, we should understand that there are 3 powers, namely legislature, executive, judiciary. Legislature for union means it denotes parliament. Executive in union denotes Council of Ministers headed by Prime Minister. Union judiciary means it denotes Supreme Court. Now, we need to understand this particular concept. Legislative and executive, that is administrative, both are integrated, but the judiciary is left aloof, that is, it is separated. We have an integrated judiciary. Supreme Court is the apex institution, and under it comes the state high courts, and under the state high courts comes the subordinate court. So, for all these courts, the apex court is the Indian Supreme Court. Election Commission. There is only one National Election Commission that will deal both the Parliament and State Legislative Assembly elections. The State Election Commission will just conduct elections only for the local bodies and urban bodies that comes under 73rd and 74th Amendments of Schedule 11 and Schedule 12. Unified auditing. Article 148 exclusively deals with CAG, that is Comptroller and Auditor General. There is no separate auditing for the states. We follow a unified auditing for both the center and states. One of the twin objectives of our Indian federalism is, our first priority is national unity, and then comes second the regional identity. In spite of all this federalism, national unity should prevail. This is the motto of our Indian federalism. Two political scholars who have described who have commented about our Indian constitution are Professor Weir and Professor Alexandrovich. Professor Weir says that Indian federalism is quasi-federal, whereas Professor Alexandrovich says India is a case of sui generis, meaning a unique nature. Dear student friends, as we conclude, I just want to remind about one famous quote by the political scholar Austin. He used to state that our Indian constitution is a cooperative federalism. Now, two questions can be expected. One question can be focusing exclusively on the salient features of our constitution. In this case, we need to justify both the unitary as well as the federal character. As we write, we need to understand that in case of the unitary characters, Article 3 and 4 is quite important. That means even without the consult of a state, the Parliament can do a change in this state boundaries. As we write about the federal characters, Article 368 is quite important because a constitutional amendment requires a special majority. Now, as we conclude, I just want to share one particular scope of political science. Almost as you go for higher studies, and in case if we happen to approach for any sort of competitive exams, may it be an Union Public Service Commission or a staff selection commission in the center or any state run public service commissions, say for example TNPSC, there are exclusively 10 specific questions focusing from union to the states. Likewise, independent judiciary. So, this +2, I am sure if you are strong enough, particularly in the +2 political science concepts, you do have a great scope when you go for any sort of competitive exams, because it will, in fact, it will help you even when you sit in the interview board. Polity is the current issue that is happening. This will be asked even in the interview. So, my wishes to all of you. Thank you.
இந்நிகழ்ச்சியை பற்றிய தங்களின் மேலான கருத்துக்களை கீழ்கண்ட முகவரிக்கு கடிதம் மூலமாகவோ மின்னஞ்சல் மூலமாகவோ குறுஞ்செய்தி மூலமாகவோ தெரியப்படுத்தலாம். அனுப்ப வேண்டிய முகவரி: சிறப்பு அலுவலர், கல்வி தொலைக்காட்சி, 8ஆம் தளம் அண்ணா நூற்றாண்டு நூலகம், காந்தி மண்டப சாலை, கோட்டூர்புரம், சென்னை 6,85,000. தொலைபேசி எண் 7824015000.